So today let us discuss about the fluid and electrolyte balance. So before moving into fluid and electrolyte imbalances, you have to understand what are the fluid and electrolyte balances and how the body is adapting with that imbalance. So how the body is shifting from the balances to imbalance. So before moving to those normalcies, first let us see the basic physiology as well as the biochemistry behind this. So the fluid and electrolyte imbalances. You know, the human body, it comprises about 60% of the body weight. So the fluid itself is having 60% of the body weight, whereas the infant is having approximately 80%, and the old age, when it comes to old age, due to dehydration, dry skin, etc., it will be around 40%. So it is said that body is made up of 70%, but the medical texts are saying that it is of 60% of the body weight. So that is a percentage of the fluid in the body. So next, you have to understand where these body fluids are settled in the body. So we have mainly divided it into ICF as well as ECF, that is intracellular fluid as well as extracellular fluid. Okay. So what you mean by intracellular fluid is that the fluid which is present inside the cell, for example, the fluids in the cytoplasm. So that is known as the intracellular fluid. So 2/3 of the fluid, the 2/3 of the 60% of the fluid which is inside the body is in the cell, which is it is inside the cell. Okay. So next one is extracellular fluid. So any fluid which is apart from the intracellular fluid is known as extracellular fluid. Okay, and the extracellular fluid is again divided into three compartments. So first one is the interstitial compartment. So you might have heard about interstitial fluid shift, right? So interstitial compartment or the interstitial space is the area between two cells. Okay, so the area between or the fluid which is between the two cells are known as interstitial compartment or the interstitial cell. So next one is intravascular compartment. So intravascular compartment means nothing but the blood vessels. So the fluid which is inside the circulation, which is inside the blood vessels are known as intravascular compartment. Mainly the plasma, which comprises of the plasma. And the third one is the fluid compartment, which is small in size. For example, your synovial joints, your aqueous chamber, your vitreous chambers, etc. So all those comes under fluid and fluid, which is in the small scale compartments. Okay. Next is you have to understand what are the terminologies of these fluids and electrolyte balances. So first one is the solute. So you know the substance which is dissolved for example, if you're dissolving salt in a water, so salt is known as the solute, and next is the solvent. So the substance in which the solute is dissolved. For example, if you're dissolving the salt in the water, so the water is known as the solvent, and the substance, that salt, is known as the solute. Okay, so these are basic terminologies. You might be very well aware of these things. And third one is the osmolarity. So there is some difference between osmolarity and osmolality. Okay, so in chemistry, we can say osmolality, which is the concentration of the solute. For example, what is the concentration of the sodium here? That is the example which we are taking here. So the concentration of the solute by kilograms of water. Okay, that is osmolarity, and osmolarity is concentration of solute by liters of water. So in clinically, we are taking about the osmolarity. Why? Because we are calculating the water in liters, not in kilograms. So we are not going to pure science like physics and chemistry, but as a technical one, which is the clinical oriented side. So we are taking the osmolarity. Okay. And the solutions, so you know, we have solutions like hypotonic solutions, isotonic solutions, and hypertonic solutions. So what are hypotonic solutions? See, simply we can see that in that condition, the solutes will be smaller in amount when compared to the solvent. For example, 0.3 percentage or 0.3 percentage or 0.45, mainly the 0.45 percentage of normal saline, which we are taking into consideration when when looking into the clinical aspect. Second is the isotonic solution. So here, what do you mean by isotonic solution? Here, the osmotic pressure will be equal, which means the amount of solute as well as amount of solvent will be equal, which is equal in size, equal in pressure, equal in number. For example, 0.9 percentage of sodium chloride is an isotonic solution. Third one is hypotonic solution. So here, what happens? It's just a reversal of hypotonic solution. In hypotonic solution, the solute will be larger than amount when compared to the solvent. For example, 3% NS, 3% NS, then our dextrose normal saline, all other colloids, also all of these comes under the category of hypotonic solution. Next is the ions. What do you mean by an ion? So when an atom loses or gains an electron, it that condition is known as ion. So, for example, we can say that it is a charged particle. Okay, ion might be a charged particle. Aisha, could you please guide me on what is the atomic number of sodium? Aisha, what is the atomic number of sodium? Hello? Hello, Aisha, are you there? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, what is the atomic number of sodium?
It is 21.
No, it is 11. Okay, so do you remember the shells of an electron? So it's SPDF or KLMN. Do you remember all those things?
No, sir.
Okay, fine. So let me remind you, in an atom, we have a nucleus in the center and electrons are revolving around the nucleus, right? So in order to specifically accommodate these electrons in an atom, so what happens is that it is having an shell. So first shell is known as S, second shell is known as P, third shell is known as D. So we have, do you remember 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, all these categorization? So what happens in this? So 1s2 means in the first shell, the first shell is which is known as S shell is full. It the maximum amount of electrons that an S shell can carry is 2, and second one is P. P can carry 8 electrons, right? And then another one to 16 electrons or to 32 electrons. So that is a normal accommodation power of an each and every shell.
Sir, a screen is not visible, sir.
No, no, I don't think so. I
Just
have.
once you move the arrow, no, sir, I will see. Yeah, okay, sir.
Okay, fine. So, okay. So we were talking about the sodium atomic number, right? So the atomic number of sodium is 11. So in order, see how when an atom is considered as a stateless, then if the outermost shell of an atom should be complete, clear, and a substance or an atom is said to be complete when the outermost shell of that atom is completed with electrons. Clear. See the what is the atomic number of hydrogen? It is 1. So the outermost the shell which contains the electron is S. Okay. So and what is the maximum number of electrons that the S should comprise of? See, as we had said, the S should contain 2. So in case of hydrogen, it is only having 1. So it is an inactive that which means it is in an active stage, which means it will be bombarding with other agents or other atoms to become stable. Okay. So what the second gas, that is helium. Okay, the amount of electron in the helium. What is atomic number of helium? Aisha, what is the atomic number of helium? The atomic number of helium is 2. So which means that the outermost shell of the helium, that is the outermost shell will be S, right? So the outermost shell of the helium is having 2 electrons, which means it is stable. So such kind of stable atoms are known as noble gases or noble substances. So be helium, argon, etc. Neon. See, all these things are what? Noble gases, which means they won't participate in electronic activities or chemical activities. Why? Because they are stable. The outermost shell of these agents or these atoms are complete. So apart from these noble gases, other substances like sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, chlorine, zinc, iron, all those things will combine in chemical reactions. Okay, so when we are talking about sodium, why? Because I'm taking an example of sodium is that it is clinically more related for us. So that's why I'm taking sodium. So the outermost the electronic number of sodium is atomic number of sodium is 11. So the S contains two electrons. Okay, remaining we have 9 electrons, right? And the second shell is P. P can accommodate up to 8 electrons, right? So as a 2 in the S shell, P in the P shell, we have 8 electrons. So how many of it is completed till now? 2 plus 8, 10. And we are having again a 1 electron, which will be pushed towards the next shell. Okay. For example, you can say a certain SPDF shell. So it will be inside the D shell, right? So it should be, see, the D shell must contain 8 electrons. Okay. So what happens is that, is it easy to lose 1 electron or to gain 7 electrons? Which one will be better? Actually, which one will be better? To gain a 7 electrons or to lose 1 electron?
Lose 1 electron.
Yeah, to lose 1 electron. So the sodium will combine to the substances which is in need of 1 electron. For example, when we are taking about the condition of chlorine, okay, the outermost shell of the chlorine is having 7 electrons. So in order to get stabilized, it needs 1 electron. So what will the chlorine do? Will it give away the 7 electrons or it will take 1 electron? Like it will take 1 electron, right? So the sodium as well as the chlorine will combine. They will enter into a covalent bond and they will form as a salt, which is known as sodium chloride. Clear? So when an ion, when a positively charged ion and a negatively charged ion combine to form a base, combine to form a salt. Okay. So now you got the concept, like how the sodium and how the chlorine is combining. That is also the same condition of potassium chloride. K is having plus, Cl is having minus. So K and Cl will combine and they will enter into a covalent bond and they will ultimately form a salt, which is known as potassium chloride, right? And one more thing, see, the sodium is giving away 1 electron. So the charge of the sodium becomes positive plus, and the chlorine is taking 1 electron. So the charge becomes negative. Okay, so this is what an ion means. Okay, when an atom loses or gains an electron, it will be no longer neutral, but it will be a charged particle. Okay, so when this become a charged particle, it is known as ion. So these are the values of the normal things: calcium, chlorine. Please take a screenshot of this values. Okay, it is self-explanatory. So you know the values of all these things, right? You don't have any doubt in those. But remember this one, potassium. See the value of potassium. It is around 3.5 to 5.5 milliequivalent per liter. But in case of CKD patients, if the patient is CKD, and you take the potassium as 5 as the upper limit. Okay. And you know, cations are positively charged substances. For example, chlorine is a positively charged one, fluorine is a positively charged one. Okay, and anions are cations are positively charged one, which means the sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, iron, all these things are cations which are positively charged, but anions are negatively charged, like chlorine, fluorine, etc. And let us move going further with the cations. Okay, so first cation is sodium. Clear. So we'll just look into the sodium. What is sodium? See, sodium is abundant in extracellular fluid. Okay, so you can see in the cell. So if sodium is more in outside the cell, so what will be the substance which is abundant inside the cell? Aisha, what will be the substance which will be abundant inside the cell? That is intracellular fluid. Aisha. Yeah. Hello. If sodium is outside the cell, if sodium is abundant outside the cell, yeah, it will be potassium which is inside the cell. Okay. Okay. Next, what is the function of sodium? It acts as an action potential in the nervous system as well as in the muscle fibers. Okay, and it regulates the acid-base balance. And the fourth one, you see, this is important. Okay, the food which is containing all these questions were one asked. Yeah, all these questions were one asked. See, which are the foods that contains more sodium? So the foods which I have selected is on the basis of the pardon. So the foods are celery, processed foods, snacks, smoked meat like your alfaham, and cheeses. Okay, next is potassium. So, you know, or as I have said, potassium is abundant as an intracellular fluid, and it is the resting potential as well as the repolarization of the muscles as well as the, see, simply the cardiac muscles. Okay, if any changes occurs in the potassium, it directly affects the cardiac muscle. Then, so as we have said, the potassium is abundant in inside the cell. Okay, it is abundant in intracellular fluid. So, any change in the extracellular fluid, any change in the potassium which affects in the extracellular fluid is considered as an abnormality. So, if the EC of potassium is increased, which is known as hyperkalemia, and when the extracellular, mainly in the blood, okay, in the blood, EC of the potassium decreases, which is known as hypokalemia. Okay, and the foods which are considered as a rich source of potassium is banana, avocado, oranges, dates, apricots, potatoes, and raisins. Okay. See, what is this ECG interpretation? See, you can see the T wave, peak to T wave, right? See, this is the indication of hyperkalemia. See, this is the normal, what ECG, and you can see a tall T wave. Yes, tall T wave. So this is the changes which is happening on the basis of the serum potassium increases. Okay, you can simply say that there is a tall P wave. Sorry, T wave. There is a tall T wave. So in this condition, see, for 10 as well as 11, it is already is in the case of ventricular tachycardia. Okay. So see this ECG. See, can you see this wave? This wave, this is not T wave, this is U wave. Okay, this is seen in hypokalemia. Okay, a depressed T wave, but a prominent U wave. This is the ECG finding of hypokalemia. So you can compare the hypokalemia as well as the hyperkalemia. In hypokalemia, there will be T inversion, ST depression, and prominent U wave. See, this is the main point. Okay, T inversion and ST depression can also be seen in myocardial infarction, but along with that, there should be a prominent U wave. That is the kind of hypokalemia. Whereas hyperkalemia, nothing but peak to T wave. Peak to T wave is already only seen in hypokalemia. And in association with that, there will be P flattened, P wave will be flattened, and PR prolongation will be there. Next is the calcium. So, you know, the calcium will form salts with the phosphates, carbonates, as well as fluoride. And the hypercalcemia, and see, here you have to understand that, see, if there is an increase in the calcium level, it leads to CNS depression, whereas decrease in that calcium level leads to CNS excitation. So, CNS excitation can be elicited as cramps as well as tetanus. Okay. So it also affects the clotting factors. The prothrombin is activated by the presence of calcium, and the prothrombin is converted into activated thrombin. So calcium is very important for the formation of thrombin and the clotting cascade. And the foods which are rich in sodium is milk, obviously milk and milk products, bony fishes, leafy vegetables like spinach. And these are ECG changes in hypercalcemia as well as the hypocalcemia. See, this is nothing but here, see, this is ST segment. So, lengthening of ST segment is seen in hypocalcemia, and shortening of ST segment is seen in hypercalcemia. See, here there is a lengthening of ST segment. Don't look into this QT segment. See, once there is an elongation in the ST segment, obviously there will be an elongation in the QT segment. Okay, so this may leads to Torsades deep pointer. So hypocalcemia may leads to Torsades deep pointer, and this is the ECG finding of the Torsades deep pointers. So this can be managed by magnesium sulfate. Okay, management of Torsades deep pointers, magnesium sulfate. For a glance, you can see this is a normal ECG pattern. This is hypocalcemia, and this is hypocalcemia. See the difference in the ST segment. See, here is a shorter ST segment. Here is an elongated ST segment. Okay. Next is the magnesium, which is the co-factor of energy metabolism, and it is a normal constituent of the bone. Foods like nuts, soya, cocoa, seafood, peas, whole grain, that's rich in magnesium. Okay. Next, just take the screenshot of this. So that you can compare easily. Next is the anion. So we have completed the cations. Next is the anion. Chlorine. See, chlorine is the major component of the gastric secretion. Why? Because hydrochloric acid is abundant in gastric secretion, and chlorine is also seen in the ECF. Like see, you can see potassium, sodium is seen in ECF, and the chlorine is seen in ECF. So they may combine and form a high, normal saline, or it can be in the form of ions when it is necessary. And it balances sodium. It's the same in the condition which I have said, it combines with sodium. And food is nothing but salt. So the major component of it's the major component of the gastric secretion. So you if we are taking if we are keeping the patient on continuous gastric lavage, there will be depletion of the sodium. Next is the bicarbonate ion, which is the part of the buffer system. So buffer system will be dealt in the next topic. So we reserve for that. Then it reacts with acids to form carbonic acid and a base. So carbonic acid is nothing but how the carbon dioxide is diluted in the blood, and how it is reached from the cells to the lungs for the purification. So carbonic acid is nothing but diluted CO2, carbon dioxide. Next is the phosphate. So it is the part of phosphate buffer system. So we have phosphate buffer system and bicarbonate buffer systems. So it combines with ADP to form ATP, and it combines with calcium also. It is involved as the genetic material like RNAs as well as the DNA. Next, how the electrons are moved, how the electrolytes move, movements of the electrolytes. First one is diffusion. So, from the higher gradient to the lower gradient, the movement of substances from higher gradient to lower gradient is known as diffusion. And what is osmosis is? So movement of substances from higher gradient to lower gradient through a semi-permeable membrane, that is known as osmosis. Next, what is active transportation? Active transportation means from a movement of one area to another area with the consumption of energy or with the consumption of glucose. So in the active transport, energy is consumed. Okay. Next is what is osmotic pressure. So the force exerted by the fluid to cross the membrane. Okay, that is known as the osmotic pressure. The pressure forced by the fluid to cross the membrane. Next is the oncotic pressure. Next, what is oncotic pressure? Simply the osmotic pressure exerted by large molecules. Okay, so in the clinical area, consider albumin. Okay, the oncotic pressure, the osmotic pressure exerted by the large molecules to cross the the membrane. So that is the transferable membrane. Next is the how the fluid and the electrolytes are regulated, or how the fluids are regulated. This thing is electrolytes are managed. So first method is known as thirst mechanism. When your oral mucosa get dried, your hypothalamus, the thirst center is activated, and it will say you to drink the water. The next method is osmoreceptor system, that is antidiuretic hormone. So if the bodies have deprived of fluid, the antidiuretic hormone will be initiated, and it will suppress the loss of fluid or the urine through the body. Or if you are having in the excessive amount of fluid, for example, in case of a rainy day, your ADH hormone will be decreased so that your urine will be passed from the body so as to maintain the electrolyte balance of the body. And the third mechanism is aldosterone feedback mechanism. It is known as simply the renin-angiotensin aldosterone mechanism to control the BP. Okay, to control the BP, there lies the renin-angiotensin aldosterone mechanism. But here in the what happens in the adrenal or the adrenal cortex is that, so when there is an increase in the potassium ECF or decrease in the sodium condition, so in response to that, so if there is a change, if there is an alteration in sodium potassium ECF level, in response to that, there will be kidney perfusion will be decreased. Okay, so when the circulation to the kidney will be decreased, the renin will be activated. So there are two types of renin, RENIN, which is produced by the kidney, which is a hormone which controls the blood BPs as well as electrolytes, and the second renin, which is spelled as RENIN, which is produced by the intestine, and it is a local hormone which helps in the digestion. Okay, so here when the kidney perfusion is decreased, in response to that, renin will be activated, and this renin will activate the adrenal cortex to produce the mineralocorticoid, which is the aldosterone. So when the aldosterone is secreted, it stimulates the kidney to reabsorb the sodium. Okay, so that's why the sodium potassium is reabsorbed. Okay, so in that condition, so and another condition like the stresses, for example, the surgery, the anxiety, so all these conditions also will be reabsorbed the stimulus. So you can see a normal patient in the post-operative, immediate post-operative condition, there is a risk of developing hypertension. That is why, because due to the stress, See here is stress, surgery is a stress, so there will be an increase of blood sugar or blood pressure. And the second effect is chlorine as well as the water conservation. Next is the acid base balance. So how the acid as well as the base is balanced. See, the solution, the acid solution is having more hydrogen ions. Okay, H plus will be more when compared to base, whereas the base will be having more carbon, bicarbonate ion. Okay, and what is the pH of the blood? It is 7.35 to 7.45. Body will anyhow, in any manner, the body will try to maintain the pH of the blood within 3.4, 7.35 to 7.45. So if there is a shift from this mechanism, it leads to acid-base imbalances. Okay. So the common acids. So hydrochloric acid, which is produced by the hydrochloric acid, which is produced by the parietal cells of the stomach. Okay, hydrochloric acid is produced by the parietal cells of the stomach. It helps in the transformation of pepsinogen into which one? It helps in the transformation of pepsinogen into pepsin. Okay. So next is carbonic acid. So carbonic acid is the one form in which carbon dioxide is transported, as we have mentioned already. Next is lactic acid. So when your muscles are worked very vigorously, your muscles will be built up with lactic acid. Next is the common bases. So common bases magnesium hydroxide, that is milk of magnesium, which is used for the antacid as an antacid, alcohol, aluminum hydroxide as an antacid, for this ammonium hydroxide, which is used as a cleaning substance, and other things like the salt. So common salts are this common salt. So what do you mean with salt? So how the salt is formed? So nothing but with the acid as a base will combine, it leads to formation of salt, like NaCl, the KCl, sodium phosphate, barium sulfate, which is used for X-ray studies, silver nitrate, which is used as an antiseptic, ferrous sulfate to treat anemia, soda bicarbonate, again an antacid. Okay, then see here is the mechanisms, that is how the body is maintaining the mechanism, or how the body is maintaining the acid-base balance. Okay, so how the body is maintaining its acid-base balance. So first, there are three methods in which the body can maintain its acid-base balance. Okay, so when there is a when there is an what problem in the pH level. Okay, if the body is going through, if the body's pH is diluted and it goes above 7.45, or when it goes below 7.35, the body's mechanisms will be activated. Okay, so the first mechanism which is activated is the buffer system. But so buffer system is, it is the first line of defense mechanism that comes into action. So which takes within seconds. Okay, the buffer system will be activated within seconds. And so there are three types of buffer system, as we have already said. That is the bicarbonate buffer system, the phosphate buffer system, and the protein buffer system. Okay, so what happens in the bicarbonate buffer system is that it is not it will it will make the change in the bicarbonate ions. Okay, simply understand like that, it will change in the effects in the bicarbonate ion, whereas in case of phosphate buffer system, it will activate the phosphates, and in the protein buffer system, it will make changes in the hemoglobin. Okay, so those are the three buffer system in which by making the changes in these three things, the acid as well as the base will be converted, and it will try to maintain the normal pH of the blood. So when this first line of buffer system fails, and then the second line of buffer system activates. So that can be taken within minutes. Okay, so that is the respiratory mechanism. So in the respiratory mechanism, what happens is that see, when your pH is altered, you can see there is a change in the partial pressure of carbon dioxide, as well as there can be change in the bicarbonate ion. Okay, so in respiratory mechanism, what is done is that it will control the exit and entry of carbon dioxide, which means the respiratory mechanism will determine the rate and depth of the respiration, so that it will increase the oxygen demand or it will decrease the oxygen demand, so as to control the carbon dioxide emission from the body. So what happens when there is an increased carbon dioxide in the body? It will leads to what carbonic acid production. If there is decreased carbon dioxide in the body, it will lead to decreased amount of carbonic acid production. So since it is an acid, it will regulate the pH. For example, if the pH is less than 7.35, the body will increase the respiration, and it will decrease the carbon dioxide present in the body, thus effectively changing the carbonic acid and thus increasing the pH of the blood. When the pH of the blood is more than 7.45, what the respiratory mechanism does is that it will decrease the respiration and increases the carbonic acid inside the blood. So as the carbonic acid decreases the pH value and it maintains to the normal pH value. Okay, so that's about the respiratory system. Next is the renal system. So renal system is the third line of defense mechanism in which it can be activated within days. Okay, it takes days to activate this renal mechanism. So what kidneys does here is that it will secretes the hydrogen atoms and it will reabsorb the sodium atom. Okay, so you know a hydrogen atom as well as a sodium atom, how the plus ions will be activated. So it will maintain the electrolytes balance. So these are the three mechanisms in which the acid base balances the control. So these were the basics of the mechanisms. Okay, so you will be getting questions which is indirectly related with these buffer systems or the buffer mechanisms. Okay, so that was the balances. So we have said what were the normal conditions. So this is the compensatory mechanism that activates when the body fails to maintain the normal mechanism. Next is the imbalances. How the acid as well as the base imbalances takes place. So you can see here the respiratory acidosis is the respiratory alkalosis, metabolic acidosis as well as the metabolic alkalosis. Okay. So what happens? See, simply you can say by seeing the value itself, by seeing the value of the pH itself, you can say what is the condition. So if there is the if the pH is decrease, what it determines, what it indicates? Simply indicates it is acidosis. Okay, when pH is increased, it is alkalosis. So you can make into a conclusion whether it is acidosis or alkalosis on the basis of pH. Okay. On the basis of this pH, you can maintain it as a just a minute. Okay. On the basis of pH, you can maintain it as you can understand it as acidosis or alkalosis. Next is how to determine whether it is metabolic or respiratory. See, in metabolic acidosis or in metabolic conditions, the bicarbonate ion will be decreased or increased. Okay, so in respiratory conditions, it will be normal. So this point where I am talking about this for the this point that is so bicarbonate ion will be normal in case of first acid base imbalance. Okay, so there will be change in the bicarbonate ion in case of compensated mechanism. Clear. So the questions will be more or less asked in this initial stage of acid base imbalance. They won't go for compensated. So the compensated mechanism is reserved for the clinical practices. So they won't. I don't think they will be asking those questions from the. So thoroughly identify this condition and study this one. Okay, so when there is a respiratory acidosis, there will be decrease in the pH, and you can see the PCO2. Okay, so the bicarbonate, the carbon dioxide, the level of the partial production of oxygen or the supply of the carbon dioxide is determined or related with the respiratory system itself. Then it won't be affected by the metabolic conditions. Okay, so these are the main 3 points in which you can identify what is the condition, if the patient is in respiratory acidosis or alkalosis are related. And you can see the causes of the respiratory acidosis. See, and one more thing in the causes also. So if it is directly related, if the diseases are directly related to the respiratory system, it will be respiratory conditions. But if it is not related with the the respiratory system, it will be metabolic in condition. Okay, it is as simple as that. Okay. So that was about the conditions of the this. Okay, so do you have any doubt on this?
No, sir.